Welcome to the Crimsafe Talking Tech. I'm Maro Engel from Erebus Motorsport, and I'll take you on board to have a look around the SLS AMG GT3. So the first thing we notice when we look at this 6.3 litre V8 AMG engine is that it's front center mounted, so sits just behind the front axle here. And it's an engine that has a lot of power down low, a lot of torque, doesn't rev quite as high. It's restricted by the FIA with these restrictors here, so these restrictors restrict the amount of air that flows into the engine, and that is part of the balance of performance, as the FIA calls it, to balance out all GT3 cars. The engine sound obviously is very particular, very special as well, and one of the unique features of this car. It's I guess you just got to hear it to really understand it. So one of the absolute unique features of this car are the Gullwings, and they are very special indeed. It's special to get into a racing car and the doors popping up upwards. The other special feature about them is obviously in case of an accident you can't open them sideways, so they do have an explosion device mounted in them in here, so that in case of an accident you can pop them open through the top and get out the car. The car itself, the chassis is obviously based on the road car, so this chassis has started out as a road car chassis and was then modified to be an SLS AMG GT3 car, which one of the other unique features is a lot of downforce that it creates. So if you come and have a look down here, down the front, you see all these nice little flicks. When the air hits them, they obviously press the car to the ground, and the faster the car is traveling, the more grip you have. This device here, called the splitter, is very important as well, because it splits the air between going above the car and the air going underneath the car. Further clever inventions are obviously then here a bit further back. If you have a quick look in here, you know, I can really put my arm in here. The air travels through the car and comes back out here. This acting a bit like a barge board, and again it acts on both sides, so it stabilizes the car and holds it firmer onto the road. If we work our way backwards here, you know, the car really ends with this massive rear wing, and just any degree of change of this angle of the rear wing will make a massive difference to your handling. So you can see here you've got different settings for the wing. So the steeper it stands, the more pressure obviously created on the rear, and the more stable the car will be on the rear. The faster you're going on the straights, but the less stability you'll have on the rear. So that's something that we drivers obviously always need to have an eye out on, how much wing we really need. So we try and get away with the least possible amount, but still have a stable car. So now we're down here at the brakes. You can see there's obviously very large, big Brembo brake discs, steel brakes. They need to be cooled quite heavily so they operate at the right temperature. So you can see the ducts here leading to the brakes. That's always something that the engineers are always working to perfect. The brakes itself, they have a huge amount of bite. You hit them with incredible pressure, as these cars have ABS. So you don't need to worry about locking wheels, because the electronics will do that for you. You just need to worry about hitting the brake as hard as you can, and obviously as late as you can. And these bad boys will do the rest for you. Back here we've got a good view at the dampers and the damping of the car. So the SLS AMG GT3 is homologated with Koni dampers, and that's the only type of damper you're allowed to run on this car. So all GT3 cars have a homologation, and so they've got that one set of dampers they're allowed to run. In our case, we trust the Koni dampers, and obviously can change the springs to suit the setup. And the dampers itself obviously have a lot of different setups and settings, so that you can adjust depending on track conditions. So right now we're in the cockpit of the SLS AMG GT3, and one of the important features for myself, for any driver, is that we've got a safety cell right here that surrounds the whole body right until my ankles pretty much, and is protecting me from any impact. That type of seat is the safest seat that we know in these racing cars, as you then mold a seat around your body which perfectly fits. Obviously when you're 3 drivers in the car you need to make a few compromises, but you always get it very close and you're very well protected. If I'm going to compare this cockpit to a V8 supercar cockpit, many of the buttons are similar. So you've got your pit speed limiter, you've got your radio button here, you've got your dash page button. All these things are quite similar, even ignition, starter, but the differences are mainly in the electronics that are allowed in these cars. So the ABS, which cuts in and prevents any locking of the brakes, and the traction control. So that's something you really need to work with in these GT3 cars, as you have 10 different settings for both ABS and traction control, and you need to try and maximize that advantage that the car is giving you to best suit it and produce the best lap time. Obviously, one other thing that is a big difference is you don't have a gear lever. You're shifting on the steering wheel, so you pull right to go up and you pull left to go down. That again is a big difference, which also means that you don't need to use the clutch at all while the car is driving. So the clutch is purely used to start and for pit stops. So once the car is moving, you're just using the buttons on the steering wheel and your brake and your accelerator. One other unique feature and a bit of a gimmick we have in our SLSs here is the rear view camera. So instead of using a rear view mirror, we've got a camera mounted on the rear and the display where you can actually see me at the moment to look out for your opponents behind you. So comparing the SLS AMG GT3 to a V8 supercar, for instance, there's a few things that stand out. One being the SLS is 100 kilos lighter than a V8 supercar, roundabout. The other part being the massive aids in electronics and downforce, which you can see with the big wings and a lot of flicks. The V8 supercar, on the other hand, probably has a little bit more power. Depending on the balance of performance and the restrictor size in the SLS, I'd say there's about 70 to 80 horsepower more in a V8 supercar than there is in an SLS AMG GT3. Overall lap times are relatively similar. I think this weekend around Bathurst, the GT3 here, the SLS, will be a little bit quicker than what we saw in October in a V8 supercar.
Buying security screens? Most Crimsafe lookalikes can pop out in just a few seconds, but the real Crimsafe doesn't, thanks to its patented screw clamp. Cheap lookalikes can pop out because they're only held in with a piece of plastic. But Crimsafe screw clamp locks the mesh and spreads the impact. Crimsafe resists attack and corrosion and now has the ultimate warranty, 15 years. Ask for a demonstration today, because if it's not Crimsafe, it's not Crimsafe.